This is my summary of Chapter 14, Capacity and Legality. We begin with contractual capacity, which is someone's ability to enter into a contract. A minor is anyone under the age of 18, and these minors can also be emancipated, so control from their parents or legal guardians is handed over to the minor. Minors can enter into contracts, but until they are 18, they have the ability to disaffirm and pull out of that contract. Disaffirmance basically means that they can avoid the obligations of a contract. So a minor who disaffirms must do so within a reasonable amount of time upon being emancipated. And most states permit minors to disaffirm contracts, but the extent of their ability to disaffirm obligations changes from court to court. Minors can disaffirm contracts even if they've misrepresented their age. However, many courts across the U.S. are changing that rule to keep it from protecting minors who have falsified their information. Minor who enters into a contract for things they need to live can be voided, but they have to repay the value of those goods. Ratification is the act of giving legal force to any type of legal obligation that was not previously enforceable. So this can happen in an express way where the party states that they want it to happen, or an implied way where through actions upon reaching an age of majority, the party indicates an intent to abide by that contract. Parents are normally not liable for any contracts made by children they no longer have control over. Intoxication does have an effect on whether or not a contract is enforceable. If a person could understand the terms and conditions of a contract regardless of whether they were intoxicated or not, then they are obligated to fulfill that contract. However, if at any point in time during the making of the contract the person could not understand the terms and agreements, then the contract is unenforceable. In the same way, an intoxicated person or someone who is unaware of the terms and conditions can disaffirm once they become aware of those conditions. Mental incompetence is another area addressed in this chapter, which has an impact on contracts and can make them void, voidable, or valid. A contract is void if at any time a court has previously determined a person to be mentally incompetent and they couldn't understand the contract, so it is void. Contract is voidable if if someone is not determined mentally incompetent, but at the time of the contract did not understand what was going on within the contract, it is then voidable. And a contract can be valid even for a mentally ill person as long as they were aware of the circumstances of the contract at the time that it was made. Legality is the second part of this chapter, which is addressed as being valid and enforceable only if a contract is formed for a legal purpose. So any contract that is used to commit crimes, such as usury or gambling, will not be legally upheld. There's also contracts that are used with licensing statutes, which are described as professionals who need licenses to operate, such as doctors and lawyers. So any professional who tries to operate in these fields without a license entering into a contract, that contract is only legal and enforceable depending on the purpose of the statute. So if the statute was used to protect the public, then the unlicensed practitioner is usually illegal, or the contract made by an unlicensed practitioner is illegal and unenforceable. However, if the licensing statute is used to raise government revenue, a court can enforce that contract and fine the unlicensed person. So any contract that is contrary to public policy that hurts society or the economy normally is not enforceable, and then any contract that tends to reduce competition for the provision of goods, so makes the market less competitive, will also not have special consideration. So covenants not to compete, such as those provided to employees upon taking a job with a business, explain that upon termination for a certain period of time, that employee cannot go to a competing business or start a competing business because of the contract they entered into. An unconscionable contract is a contract that has oppressive or harsh terms and conditions, and the court will seek to relieve innocent parties of their duties because of that contract. So procedural unconscionability is when a contract is hard to read or understand and takes advantage of a lesser party, or substantive unconscionability when the terms and conditions of a contract were harsh or oppressive. An exculpatory clause releases a party from liability in the event of monetary or physical injury. So like amusement parks, when someone gets, or people sign a waiver before they're allowed to enter, so if anyone gets hurt, the company or the park is not liable for that injury. Any contract that discriminates, a discriminatory contract based on race, color, age, gender, any of that will not be enforceable. Any contract that is illegal will be void, and both parties usually considered equally at fault. There are some exceptions. If there was justifiable ignorance, or the person is in a protected class, or they got out of the illegal agreement before they did anything illegal. If a contract was entered, basically if someone was suckered into the contract through fraud or undue influence, or if the contract is severable or divisible, then one person may have a lesser fault in the case of an illegal contract.